Jennifer Priest here with another tutorial, this time for Stencil Girl, and I want to share with you how to use PanPastels to create a really fun mixed media canvas. So I created this 6x6 little canvas here using PanPastels and Stencil Girl stencils. So the first step is I just want to do a little bit of prep on this wood canvas. So I'm putting some gesso on it, and I'm only putting it on certain sections. So I'm kind of just messy painting it on because everywhere that the gesso is, I'm going to get a little bit of a different effect with the color than where it's just the raw wood. So I want to, you know, put that gesso on there, and I'm just painting it with a brush loosely. And what's nice too is that those brush strokes on the gesso will give a little bit more texture to the piece. And you want to let this dry completely before you go to the next step. So it took a couple hours for this to dry. So here I have the Scribble Scratch stencil from Stencil Girl, and I'm using a Top Boss Watermark ink from Clear Snap. Sometimes this is labeled as Color Box Watermark ink. It's just a clear embossing ink. And what this will do is give us place for the PanPastel to stick to on the canvas. It'll set on top of the canvas, but what I really want is for it to have a place to kind of stick to so that I can keep working with it and blending it. So you can see that everywhere that the stencil was and that there's no ink there's no PanPastel really sticking to that area. So what's nice is this is kind of like a reverse resist technique, and I have to thank my friend Jamie Doherty for telling me to do this, because I was like, I don't know what to do with the PanPastel. Like, I've used it before, but it's been, you know, quite some time, and I was just kind of like trying to figure stuff out. So she threw out some ideas to me, and I was like, oh, Watermark ink, that's awesome, because I love things that are simple and that use supplies that I already have, and being a longtime paper crafter, that is something I already have. So it's really nice. You can just pick up a set of PanPastels. Here I only have 5 colors that I'm working with, and you can do this technique. So here I'm doing it on the side. This is kind of a gallery type canvas. I'm again putting my Scribble Scratch stencil down and then pressing the Watermark ink onto it, and then using the wedge little sponges from PanPastel to apply that color right to the side of the canvas. Now the sponges that I'm using are the soft sponges from PanPastel, and these are some of Mary Beth Shaw's favorite sponges, and we have them over in the Stencil Girl shop, so go over there and check it out. I can't leave a link here in the video, but I will have a link on my blog to where you can get these sponges. They're great size, and what's nice is that you can use it to blend the colors, and it applies them in such a way you just can't get that with anything else, you know. So think of like your better makeup sponges, how that makes a difference when you're putting on face makeup. Well, the same thing with PanPastels. Using these sponges really makes a difference in the effect you're going to get. So here I'm just blending some of these colors together. I'm using the yellow to add a little bit of a pop, and then everywhere where that green and that fuchsia color come together, it kind of makes this really pretty like navy blue color. So again, I'm just pressing that ink pad to get the ink to come out and press onto the wood through the stencil. I'm using that Color Box Watermark ink. And again, here I'm just experimenting with some different things. And I love this Scribble Scratch handwriting stencil because it has this great graffiti type effect. Now, before I go to the next layer, I want to spray this with Workable Fixative. However, my Workable Fixative, I think, is like 5 years old. So it kind of splattered all over, and it made this weird splotchy effect, which I kind of like. So I'm keeping that can of Workable Fixative so I can get splotches on a next project. But that's not really what I wanted to have happen. So Workable Fixative will kind of keep this, the PanPastel in place so that I could add my next layer on top. So it makes it so that if I added another layer on top of here, I wouldn't be like smearing and smudging around the PanPastel color. So these are just some flat wood discs that I got, I want to say at Hobby Lobby. I'm making a jewelry project with them for another company, and I had to buy like a bag of 100 of these, and I thought, well, wouldn't this be kind of a fun textural element on my canvas? So I applied those little circles, and then that's going to kind of help me position this girl stencil. This is the sister stencil from Stencil Girl, of course, and I'm using the copper pan pastel. It's got a metallic kind of sheen in it to apply this image right on top of my canvas so that it's kind of faint, and I wanted this ethereal type of effect. And then again, I'm using just a little bit of that copper and a little bit of the fuchsia to kind of add some shading there around the edges of that canvas. I used some Aleene's glue to glue down those wood discs, and because they're so thin, they wanted to curl. So I just took an acrylic block and set it right on top of my canvas, and then put a metal block that's even heavier on top of that with the can of gesso to kind of hold everything down until it all dried. And then I tried to put some pan pastel right onto those wood pieces, and it didn't stick. So I put my stencil, this is the Precious Peony stencil, right on top of the wood pieces, and because they're raised up, the stencil's only going to transfer onto the wood pieces and not onto the actual background. So I used my Colorbox ink again, my Watermark ink, to apply that stencil image to the wood, and then I'm using just the sponge to apply that really pretty emerald green and a little bit of that yellow for some contrast onto those little circles. So it's a very subtle pattern, and I really like the way that that came out. And then I just added some stamped words with some Surfaces solvent ink. It's a solvent based ink so that everything would stay together, and then I used some spray sealer to seal all of this up. And you can see I used again some more pan pastel on those edges to really make them stand out. I wanted this like graffiti, really intense color effect. So I hope you enjoyed my video today, and hit that subscribe button at the end, and don't forget to continue on the blog hop all week long with the Stencil Girl and Pan Pastel teams.